Hi, I'm Mr. Miller, and this is a lesson on budgets. So in order to be able to do some budget questions um, pretty easily, it's important to know some of the terminology. So some of these things may be obvious, but I'm just going to read through them real quick. So first of all, when we're talking about a budget, we're talking about a spending plan. It accounts for how much money you spend and what you spend your money on. And it also keeps track of how much money you earn. So most budgets, what they'll do is they'll keep track of this on a monthly basis because most people are paid once a month. Some people are paid twice a month, but often that's the case, once a month. Other people get paid every 2 weeks. That's called bi-weekly, and so they may decide to organize their budget that way. But you could organize a budget on a weekly basis. And some people at the end of a year will look at their budget overall annually. So again, kind of an obvious definition here. Most people may already know these definitions, but income is money you earn, expense is money that you're spending. So one thing that's really important to know the difference between is a variable expense and a fixed expense. So a variable expense is when you pay a different amount of money during each period of your budget. So if you have a variable expense, it might be something like groceries. And I know that there are some months when I spend a certain amount on groceries, and other months I might spend a different amount. You'll find that there are seasonal foods that can be more expensive, and you may want to buy those things when they're in season, and when they're not in season there may be other foods that you're buying that are less expensive, and so you're going to find that the amount that you're spending on food will change from month to month. So that's definitely a variable expense. Another variable expense is money that you're spending on clothes, and so there may be some months where you do some clothes shopping and other months where you don't at all, and maybe some months you might buy a little bit more, and other months you might buy a little bit less. So that's another definite variable expense is clothing. Now, a fixed expense is something that is going to be the same amount during every period of your budget. So fixed expenses tend to be things like your rent, if you're renting a house, or if you are paying a mortgage, it tends to be the same amount every month. Cell phone bills can be fixed expenses as long as you stay within your plan, right? If you start to have extras like using extra data, then that can become also a variable expense. So there are three types of budgets. There's a balanced budget, which is when your income and your spending are equal. A surplus is when your total income is actually more than the total expenses, and you have a deficit when you spend more than your total income. And so obviously that's one that you want to avoid, but those are the three situations. Okay, so now that you have some of the terminology, it should be easier to work through these examples. So the first example we're looking at is a student who is trying to follow this monthly budget. They get paid at work, plus they get an allowance of $50, and the total of that is $325. Now, they have a phone plan, which is $35. And notice how the 325, which is income, this is a positive amount. But when you have an expense, we subtract that away. So this 290 is the 325, take away the $35, and this is what's left over is $290. The entertainment is another cost, so we take the 290 and we subtract 20, we're left with 270. Clothing and accessories, this person is looking to spend $50, so 270 minus 50 leaves you with 220. And if you subtract the other miscellaneous purchases at $50, you're left with 170. So that is what this person has planned as their monthly budget. But in one particular month, things were a little bit different, so let's take a look at this. They receive a $25 leadership award. This person gets $285.45 for 2 weeks of work, spends $60 on a pair of shoes, $109.45 on a skateboard, $18.50 on moving and popcorn, and pays the phone fee of $35 and still gets the $50 of allowance. So if we record these things into the actual budget for this particular month, then we can do a little bit of comparison between what actually happened and what they had planned for the monthly budget. So let's start with the leadership award. Okay, this person has a leadership award which earns them $25 of income. So far the balance is $25 in the positive. Next, we have $285.45 for 2 weeks of work. Okay, so the income from work is $285.45. And now I'm going to add that to the $25, and I'm left with $310.45. Next, we have shoes. So this particular month, this person bought shoes, and the cost of the shoes was $60. So the $60 is being subtracted from $310.45, and we're left with $250.45. And after the shoes purchase, there's also a skateboard. All right, and the skateboard, the cost there was $109.35. And so if we subtract the $109.35 from $250.45, we're left with $141.10. So now we're looking at movie and popcorn. And that cost was $18.50. So that's also subtracted. We subtract that from $141.10, we're left with $122.60. And next we've got the phone plan. And the phone plan was $35. So if we subtract that from $122.60, we're left with $87.60. And finally, there is the allowance. And the allowance is $50, and that's on the income side. So I add that to the $87.60, and we have $137.60. So there's some follow-up questions here, so let's take a look. First question is, are the students' income and expenses fixed or variable? So first of all, the only income that is fixed is the allowance at $50. Okay, all the other income was variable. And so, you take a look at the income from work, it was $285.45. Normally it's less than that, but when you're working a part-time job, it's not unusual to get paid a little bit more in some months if you work more hours and less in other months if you're working less hours. The leadership award is probably not something that this person is going to earn every month, but they happen to get it this month, so they got a little bit more money overall. So that's the income. the only fixed part of the income was the allowance. The only fixed part of expenses was the phone plan at $35. So that was the same as usual. But of course, there were some things in there, like, for instance, the skateboard, that purchase, probably not something they're doing every month. Shoes, probably not something they're doing every month. So that's maybe going to be a little bit less next month, or maybe not even at all. Movie and popcorn, so they like to spend a little bit on entertainment. That may stay about the same from month to month, but depending if the person decides to not get popcorn one time, they could save a little bit of money, or if they decide to go see a few movies instead of maybe just one, then this could go up as well. So those things are definitely variable expenses, but the phone plan is the one that is fixed. Okay, so all other expenses and income are variable. Okay, cool. Next, the question is, did the students stick to the planned budget? So, if you do a quick addition of the three incomes here and compare it with the income there, the income is $325 here, and it's definitely more than $325. So they're getting more income. But if you compare the total expenses here and the total expenses there, and I leave it to you to add them up to do a quick check of that, but you'll find that the expenses are definitely more. And so it's great to make more money, but if you're also spending a lot more, and the net result is the money that's left over at the end of the month is $137.60, whereas your plan was to have an extra $170 every month, then obviously they're not following the budget, and they're not saving as much in the end as they were intending to. So that's the comments. Those are the comments that I would put in here. Okay. So no, the student did not stick to the planned budget. So although they earned more money, they also spent more money and had less money left over at the end of the month than they had planned. So it's not like it's terrible. It's not like suddenly they have a deficit overall, but they don't have as much savings as they were intending to have. They were intending to have 170 saved at the end of the month, and there's only 137.60 saved at the end of the month. So there we go. That's that example. Let's take a look at another situation. And the situation is this. We've got a group of 3 students that are planning a camping trip. The campsite costs $39.75 per night, including tax, for up to 4 people. They expect to spend $15 per person for food per day, and each person has $50 to contribute to the trip. There are 3 people at this point. So it's asking if they have a balanced budget for this one night of camping, and explain. So first of all, let's take a look at the income, right? The income, the money that they have to spend. So it's $50 per person to contribute, and times 3 people, so they've got $150 to play with. So if you compare that with expenses, the expenses are $39.75. That will cover the 3 people. They could have even had a 4th person for the same price if they want. Plus, we've also got, they're expecting a cost of $15 per person for each day of food. And we're just talking about one day, but we've got 3 people. So if we add that up, it's $84.75. So, so the situation is, and it's not a bad thing, they do not have a balanced budget since they have more money to spend than their total expenses. So it's not a bad thing. They've got money left over. It's just that if they're organizing it and they're saying, okay, each of us needs to chip in $50, well, it's more than is necessary. So maybe they decide to change their plans. Like maybe they add one more friend and they decide to go for 2 nights. So let's see how that turns out. So in this case, if we've got 4 people, then the income, the money that they have here is $50 per person times 4 people. And so that's $200 they have to spend. Okay. And now if we look at the expenses, then we're talking about $39.75 times 2, because this is the nightly cost, and they're going to stay for 2 nights now. And then it's $15 per person times 4 people, but times 2 days. And so now if we work out the total there, it would come out to $199.50. So, this is very close to a balanced budget. Because they will only have 50 cents left over. Okay, so if they're collecting money from people and they're saying $50 each times 4 people and they spend $199.50, nobody's going to get too worried about the 50 cents left over and say, hey, you overcharged us. Right? It's highly unlikely. Unless they're really dramatic people, but hopefully not. Anywho, okay, let's take a look at one final situation. We've got a student who's planning to take a trip with a school band in 8 months. And this person is going to pay $700 of it themselves, and then her parents are going to be paying for the rest. So in the last month, she was paid $165 twice. She got an allowance of $75. She earned $42 for babysitting. She was paid $45. She paid $45 for her cell phone bill. She paid $42 for her gym membership, $16 at a restaurant, and $60 for a concert. And she had $85 saved at the start of the month. So now we want to fill in a budget worksheet for the student for the past month. So let's start with the opening balance. Okay, so the balance from the previous month is $85. So we're going to start with that. And now we're going to look at getting paid twice. And it's $165 each time. $165. Pay again, $165. And so each time you get paid, this is going to add to your balance. So I'm going to do 85 plus 165, which is $250. And 250 plus 165, we're up to 415. And so now there's also an allowance of $75. Okay, so let's put in the allowance, $75. Add that to the balance. We're up to $490. And the next thing is babysitting. So babysitting, she earns $42 for that, so that's another income amount, and we're just going to add that to the total. We're now up to $532. And after babysitting, notice there's a $45 charge for the cell phone bill. And so we're going to subtract $45 from $532, and we are left with $487. And next, we've got a gym membership. And the gym membership is $42. So we subtract that 42, take that away from 487, we're left with $445. And then there is a restaurant. And at the restaurant, there's $16 spent, so we subtract $16 from 445, we're left with $429. And finally, there is a concert that this person goes to, and the concert, they spend $60, and so 60 subtracted from 429, we're left with $369. Okay, so we've got that filled in. The next question is, how can she set aside enough money for the trip in 8 months? So after that 1 month, there's a few possibilities. So first possible solution here is you take the $700 and you divide by 8 months, and that would give you $87.50 per month to be saved. Okay, so if you were recording that on this sheet, you could record $87.50 as another expense, so you could add in another line here for saving for the band trip, and that could be $87.50, and you can see that there's lots of money left over at the end of the month. So certainly this person could afford to save $87.50 per month, and at the end of 8 months, she would have the total amount that she needs, which is the $700, and of course her parents are going to pay for the rest of the trip, so she'll be in good shape. So that's one way to go. Now, another way is to maybe choose some larger amounts to save here and there. So maybe in this particular month, they look at things and they say, wow, I got $369 saved. I don't want to spend all of that money on the trip, but maybe I could save, so we'd say she could save $200 this month, and so that takes her far towards her goal of $700. Then she could plan to save $100 per month for 5 months, and have the total $700 a little bit early. So, and of course, there are many other possibilities I'm sure you could think of, ways of saving up the money, but these are just a few of the ways. And yeah, that would definitely work for her. So that covers a few examples. The next thing that you should do is you should follow this up with some practice questions. So here's what the practice questions look like for this section on budgets. So it would be a good idea to identify whether items are income or expenses, just to make sure that you're clear on the difference between those two things. Question number 3 is a good one on balanced budgets, so it would be a good idea to give that a shot. Question number 5 would be a good one because it gives you some practice on making your own budget worksheet. I would recommend for you to do question number 8 as well, and try question number 9. And finally, question number 11. So again, those questions that I recommend to do are numbers 1, so that's all parts A, B, C, D, E. Question number 3, question number 5, all parts A, B, C. And question number 8, do parts A, B, C, and D. Question number 9, do parts A, B, C, D, and E. And finally, question number 11, all parts there, A through to H. After that, you'll notice that you have an answer key, so make sure you check all your answers as you go. And that's it. So thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye.